Hello everyone! It's been a long time since my last video. So today, let's learn how to play another Hanafuda game. Now, when I started making this Let's Play Hanafuda series, I focused on showing you some Hanafuda games that were not commonly taught by other YouTubers. But I realized that I should have started on this game from the very beginning. And that game is Bakappana. To put it simply, Bakappana is the most basic Hanafuda game. So for those who are not familiar with Hanafuda, this game would be a great first step in learning how to play with the cards. So if you're a total beginner at Hanafuda, please stay with me and I'll explain what Hanafuda is. And if you're already familiar with Hanafuda, you can go and skip ahead to learn the rules of the game. Let's continue. Hanafuda is a traditional Japanese card deck consisting of 48 cards. The name Hanafuda literally means flower cards in Japanese, and it got its name because of the images of flowers printed on the cards. While in the familiar Western 52 card deck, the cards can be classified by their suits of spades, clubs, diamonds, and hearts, or by their numbers and courts. In Hanafuda, the cards can be classified by their suits, represented by one of 12 flowers, or by ranks, represented by other objects or animals or lack thereof, which typically denote the point value of the card. The 48 cards of Hanafuda are equally divided into 12 suits of 4 cards each. Unlike Western playing cards, Hanafuda cards do not have numbers on them. However, there's a way around this. Since Hanafuda has 12 suits, which correspond to the 12 months of a year, players who have memorized the so-called month sequence of the flowers can interpret the suits in Hanafuda as numbers on the cards. I will show you the month sequence of the flowers, and I encourage you to familiarize yourself with the shapes of the flowers of each suit. Don't bother memorizing the month sequence yet because it's usually not important in most Hanafuda games. So pause this video and come back when you're ready. Alright, let's continue. Now, the 4 suits in Western playing cards have no exact correspondence to Hanafuda. Instead, Hanafuda has ranks that indicate how valuable a card is in the game. There are 4 ranks in Hanafuda. The lowest ranking cards are called junks, also known as chaff or dregs. These cards have no other objects or animals other than the flower. The only exception is the junk of the willow suit, which depicts the claw of thunder god Raijin reaching out to a drum at the bottom during a thunderstorm. However, the coloration of the card, believe it or not, depicts 2 willow branches on a red background. In some games, this card is treated as a wild card, hence its special appearance. Above the junks are the ribbons, also known as scrolls or slips. They are represented by a colored vertical strip of paper known as a tanzaku, in which a person would write their wish on it and hang it on a bamboo tree during the Tanabata festival. Above the ribbons are the animals. And finally, the highest ranking are the brights. Visually, both animals and brights are represented by animals or objects on the card. However, bright cards rank higher than animals. Think of them as the same as animal cards, only treated as more valuable. So how can we differentiate between the 2 ranks? I'm sorry, but you will have to memorize it. These are the 5 brights: the crane, the curtain, the full moon, the rain man, and the phoenix. The rest of the cards are animals. Take your time to memorize the 5 brights, so please pause the video and come back. Alright, so those are the 4 ranks: junks, ribbons, animals, and brights. Unlike in a Western deck where 52 cards are equally divided into 4 suits of 13 cards each, Hanafuda is not equally divided by the 4 ranks. Meaning that while typically a suit contains a high-ranking card, a ribbon, and 2 junks, in other suits, this isn't the case. For example, the Suzuki grass suit has a bright, an animal, no ribbons, and 2 junks. This irregularity is also what makes Hanafuda interesting. So now that we've discussed how to classify Hanafuda cards, we're now ready to learn how to play with them. As I mentioned before, Bakappana is the most basic Hanafuda game. There are no special rules, and only the core gameplay mechanic of most Hanafuda games is used here. Bakappana is a 3-player game, but it can also be adjusted for 2 players only. If there are more than 3 players, they will have to wait until they could change places with the loser of the last game. The objective of the game is to obtain more points than the other players. This is done by capturing as many cards as possible, preferably the higher ranking cards, which give higher points. Junk cards are worth 1 point each. Ribbon cards are worth 5 points each. Animal cards are 10, and bright cards are 20. You may also choose to play such that junk cards are worth no points to make counting points faster. The game is typically played in 12 rounds, also corresponding to the 12 months of the year. But you may also choose to play a half year, a season, a month, or even play indefinitely. It's your choice. The game starts by deciding the seating position of the players, since the players' turns move counterclockwise, starting with the dealer. For those who have not memorized the Hanafuda month sequence, this can be done by a roll of a die. The player with the lowest number becomes the dealer of the game. The player with the second lowest number sits on the dealer's right, and the player with the highest number sits on the dealer's left. Of course, this is not the traditional way to determine the seating position because it is done via a draw of the card, but you will have to memorize the Hanafuda month sequence to do it. Or you can just have a cheat sheet with you. The deck is shuffled, placed face down on the table, and each player takes a card from the deck. The player with the earliest month suit becomes the dealer of the game. The player with the second earliest sits on the dealer's right, and the player with the latest sits on the dealer's left. I took the plum, or February, which is the earliest of the 3 months here. The player who took the iris, or May, sits on my right, and the player who took the maple, or October, sits on my left. Next, the dealer takes all the cards and shuffles the deck. The dealer then deals 7 cards to each player's hand and 6 cards to the field face up, and the rest of the cards are put face down on the table as the draw pile. Now, if there are 4 cards of the same suit on the field, the deal is void, and so the dealer must reshuffle and deal again. For demonstration purposes, I will be showing the cards in my hand. The gameplay of Bakappana is pretty consistent with most Hanafuda games and consists of 3 steps: playing a card from your hand, playing a card from the top of the draw pile, and putting all match cards into your capture pile. At the beginning of my turn, I can choose any one of the cards in my hand to play it. For example, I will choose to play this full moon card from my hand. Now, if the card I will play matches suit with any card on the field, like the geese right here, then I must capture it by putting my card on top of that card. End of step 1. Or maybe I don't want to play the full moon. I want to play this chrysanthemum instead. Now, there are 2 cards on the field that matches suit with my card. In this situation, I have to choose whether to capture the chrysanthemum junk or the sake cup. I cannot capture both at the same time. And of course, since the sake cup is higher ranking than the chrysanthemum junk, I chose to capture the sake cup. End of step 1. Or maybe I don't want to use the chrysanthemum either. I want to use the maple card instead, which matches suit with 3 cards on the field. Now this is special because if there are 3 cards of the same suit on the field, they can be captured all at once. End of step 1. Now what happens if I play a card that doesn't match suit with any cards on the field? Well, that card stays on the field and can be captured by any player later in the game. End of step 1. So now that I have shown you the different scenarios when playing a card, you may have already figured out that the most advantageous option is to play the full moon to capture the geese, which are both high-ranking cards. So let's go with that, and then we move on to step 2. I will take the top card from the draw pile and play it. The same capturing scenarios from step 1 also applies here. It's a chrysanthemum ribbon, so I must choose between the sack cup and the chrysanthemum. I'll take the sack cup. Step 3. I will take all the cards that have been matched and put them face up into my capture pile, which is the space on the table near me. It is advisable to arrange your capture pile by their ranks, so that it would be easier to tally the score at the end of the round. Now that I have organized the captured cards in my capture pile, my turn ends, and the turn passes to the player to my right. The game continues until all the cards in each player's hands have been played, as well as all the cards in the draw pile. In other words, all the cards in the Hanafuda deck will end up being captured. So after the round ends, let's start counting our scores. 2 times 20 equals 40. 5 times 10 equals 50. 5 times 5 equals 25. And 8 times 1 equals 8. So 40 plus 50 plus 25 equals 115 plus 8 equals 123. So my score for this round is 123. For the second player, 0 times 20 is 0, 3 times 10 is 30, 3 times 5 is 15, and 8 times 1 equals 8. So 0 plus 30 plus 15 equals 45 plus 8 equals 53. So player 2 has 53 points. For player 3, 3 times 20 equals 60, 1 times 10 equals 10, 2 times 5 equals 10, and 8 times 1 equals 8. So 60 plus 10 plus 10 equals 80, plus 8 equals 88. So player 3 has 88 points, which means I am the winner in this round. Yay! Now there are 2 ways to tally the score. You can choose the easy method and just record the scores you've just counted, and the total score of each player is the sum of all the scores they got in each round. Alternatively, you can use the zero-sum method. In the zero-sum method, each player starts with an arbitrary number of points at the beginning of the game, let's say 88 points per player, and at the end of every round, the counted score is subtracted by the par score, which in this case is 88 points, to determine the net score, which can be either positive, which indicates a gain in points, or negative, which indicates loss. The net score is then recorded and is applied to the player's total score in the game. The zero-sum method can also be done using tokens such as chips or sticks as counters, and the net score dictates who must pay counters and who must receive them. So after the scores are recorded, the player with the highest positive score in that round becomes the winner for that round, and also becomes the dealer for the next round. After enough rounds have been played, the game ends, and the player with the highest total score wins the game. And that was Bakappana, the most basic Hanafuda game. And by the time we discuss other Hanafuda games, they will start to look familiar because they share the exact same gameplay mechanic as Bakappana. And the best way to show that to you is by teaching you the game of hana-awase. So stay tuned for part 2, and I will tell you all about it.